They taught you a lie in school, a comfortable, elegant, seemingly unbreakable lie. They called it the first law of thermodynamics. And they told you it was sacred, that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. For decades, this rule has sat at the foundation of all physics, untouchable and absolute. But right now, I want you to stop and look around you. Feel the warmth on your skin. Think about the light pouring through your window. Think about the billions of galaxies tearing through space, each one burning with the rage of supermassive stars. If energy truly cannot be created from nothing, then answer me this: where did all of it come from? Where did everything, absolutely everything, come from nearly 14 billion years ago? Most cosmologists dodge that question. They hand you words like primordial expansion and hot, dense early universe, then quietly sweep the real problem under a thick blanket of abstract equations, hoping you never pull it back. I refuse to do that. I prefer to look the paradox directly in the eye, because the answer hiding behind it is not magical or mystical. It is darker, more elegant, and frankly more disturbing than anything your textbooks ever offered you. The answer begins with an illusion, one that you, I, and every human being who has ever lived is completely trapped inside. We instinctively think of energy as a positive presence, a burning flame, a spinning planet, the blinding light of a star. We count what we can see and touch, and we forget the force that silently shapes all of reality, gravity. And gravity is hiding a secret in plain sight. It does not behave like the energy we celebrate. It behaves like a debt, a vast, bottomless cosmic debt. Gravity, in the precise language of physics, is purely negative energy. Now I want you to do something most science communicators never ask of their audience. I want you to follow a logical argument, step by ruthless step, until your mind arrives at a conclusion it cannot escape. Picture a vast, perfectly flat plain, nothing on it. No mountains, no valleys, no light, no movement. That plane is absolute zero, a universe containing nothing, a total energy balance of exactly zero. Now imagine you want to build a mountain. You cannot import material from somewhere else. That would break the rules. You only have what is already there, which is nothing. So you pick up a shovel and you start digging. You carve out an enormous hole and you pile every grain of that excavated earth beside it. What do you have now? A towering mountain on one side and a deep pit on the other. That mountain is everything you have ever known. It is you, it is me, it is every galaxy spinning through the dark. It is the heat of the cosmic microwave background. It is all the matter and radiation in the observable universe, every atom a brick in that colossal pile of existence. According to the most famous equation in modern physics, energy equals mass multiplied by the speed of light squared. Every particle of matter is a concentrated unit of positive energy stacked into that mountain. But look at what is sitting right beside it. That pit you dug dark, vast, and bottomless, that is gravity. And here is the core truth of reality that most people are never told out loud, because it sounds like science fiction even though it is pure and verified relativity. When two massive objects are pulled together by gravity, separating them requires spending positive energy, which means, by simple and inescapable mathematics, that their connected state must carry energy below zero. It is a deficit, a cosmic debt. When the universe began, no magic occurred. What truly happened was a separation, a colossal split between mountain and pit, between matter and gravity. And if you summed every unit of positive energy in the observable universe today, then subtracted every unit of negative gravitational energy holding it all together, the result would be exactly, precisely, brutally zero. The universe never broke its own rules. It obeyed them in the most elegant and brutal way conceivable. It built this entire theater of galaxies, stars, and conscious beings without spending a single net drop of energy. We are, at our core, the result of a fluctuation that balanced itself. We are the dirt dug from a hole that was carved 14 billion years ago. The mountain and the pit are the same transaction. Existence itself is a zero-sum equation. This should stop you cold, because if the total cost of the universe is exactly nothing, then no miracle of physics was required to start it. The ledger was never overdrawn. The rules were never violated. Everything that exists is simply one half of a perfectly balanced split. And that realization, as profound as it is, immediately drags us into far more dangerous territory. If the cosmos is a zero-sum game, if all this majesty is just nothing divided into equal positive and negative halves, then what force first moved the shovel? What hidden instruction buried inside the laws of physics decreed that perfect, peaceful nothingness was somehow unstable, that it had to fracture into this roaring chaos of light and gravity? This is where the comfortable story ends. This is where we step into deep water. We have established that the universe was free to create. The balance sheet reads 0. But understanding that existence costs nothing does not answer the question that keeps serious physicists awake. Why did it happen? If nothing is the most stable, balanced, and peaceful state possible, what caused it to shatter into this colossal dance of matter and gravity? To understand this, I need you to do something deeply counterintuitive. I need you to run the clock backwards. Look at the sky today and you will find that galaxies are moving apart from each other. The universe is expanding in every direction. Pure logic then demands that if we reverse time, everything must contract. Galaxies approach each other. Stars crowd together. All the vast and empty space we observe today compresses inward, tighter and tighter and tighter. Follow that compression to its absolute mathematical limit. 14 billion years into the past, and every equation Albert Einstein ever wrote begins screaming and breaking down. You arrive at a point where all matter, all space, and all time are crushed into an infinitely small, infinitely dense region, a singularity. The image most documentaries sell you is that the Big Bang was an explosion, a detonation of fire and chaos that scattered everything outward. And this is precisely where I part ways with much of mainstream cosmology, because that image makes absolutely no thermodynamic sense. Listen carefully to what I am about to tell you, because it cuts to the heart of everything. There is a law in physics even more fundamental than energy conservation. It is the second law of thermodynamics, and it states without a single exception that things move from order to disorder, from structure toward chaos. Drop a crystal glass and it shatters into 1,000 pieces. In the entire history of the universe, you will never witness 1,000 shards of glass rising from a floor and assembling themselves back into a perfect cup. Disorder always increases. That tendency is called entropy. Now follow this logic carefully, because the trap is about to close around you. If today's universe contains a certain level of disorder, and yesterday it contained slightly less, then at the very first instant, at the Big Bang itself, the universe must have existed in a state of near perfect order. Absolute, immaculate architectural precision. But think about what an explosion actually is. An explosion is maximum chaos. If you detonate a bomb inside a junkyard, you do not expect the blast to assemble a commercial aircraft. You expect devastation. Yet the birth of our universe, erupting from that extreme singularity, produced the exact conditions necessary for stars to ignite, for planets to form stable orbits, and for conscious minds to eventually sit here and ask why. Our cosmos did not begin in chaos. It began with a level of structural perfection that obliterates any rational explanation based on random chance. I spent years calculating this mathematically. I set out to determine the precise probability that our universe could have been born with this exact degree of perfect order purely by accident, emerging randomly from chaos. The number I arrived at is so incomprehensibly large that it crashes every framework the human mind has for understanding scale. The probability that our universe began by chance is 1 divided by a number containing more zeros than there are elementary particles in the entire observable cosmos. In practical terms, the probability is mathematically indistinguishable from 0. Our origin was not an accident. The beginning of time was calibrated with such relentless and meticulous precision that it demands a profound explanation. Standard physics does not give you that explanation. It simply describes what happened and moves on. I refuse to accept that. If the universe began with the precision of a supreme cosmic watchmaker operating inside a singularity, then there is a deep mechanism embedded in the physics of reality that we are not yet seeing. Finding it requires abandoning the comfort of conventional answers. To start unraveling it, I need you to challenge the most basic concept of your existence, the very nature of size, space, and time. Right now, wherever you are, you occupy a specific place in the world. You can measure the distance between your hands. You can watch a clock and see the seconds pass. Why can you do any of that? Because you are made of matter. You have mass. That sounds trivially obvious, but pure physics tells us something radical. Size and time only exist because mass exists. In our universe, mass is the anchor that sets the rhythm of all clocks and the ruler that measures all distances. If we want to understand the origin of the universe, we must follow this mathematical rule to its final and most terrifying consequences. You have been told that the Big Bang was an infinitely small point, a microscopic singularity. But what does small even mean when there is nothing around to measure it? To grasp this paradox, I want to travel in the opposite direction first. I want to go to the extreme future of our cosmos. Imagine the universe trillions upon trillions of years from now. Every star has exhausted its fuel. Every galaxy has dissolved. The cosmos has become a cold, dark, unimaginably vast emptiness. The only objects remaining will be enormous black holes, slowly consuming the last remnants of dead matter. But even they are not eternal. The laws of quantum thermodynamics dictate that black holes gradually leak energy into surrounding space through a process my brilliant colleague Stephen Hawking demonstrated decades ago. Given incomprehensible spans of time measured by numbers with 100 zeros, those black holes will evaporate completely, returning their energy to the void as pure radiation, as light. There will come a moment, at the absolute end of time, when the universe contains not a single atom, not 1 gram of mass. Everything that remains will be photons, particles of pure light crossing an infinite abyss. And here is where the logical trap closes with absolute force. A photon carries no mass. According to Einstein's relativity, if you have no mass and travel at 300,000 kilometers per second, time stops entirely for you. A photon is born in a star, travels across the galaxy, and strikes a distant world. And for that particle, the journey took 0 seconds. It was instantaneous. Distance, in the photon's experience, does not exist. Now apply this inescapable truth to that far future universe filled entirely with light. Without mass, there is no ruler. Without mass, there is no clock. The concepts of large and small lose all physical meaning. A universe that is infinitely vast and expanding becomes mathematically indistinguishable from a point that is infinitely small and dense. The cosmos forgets how big it is, because nothing inside it can remember. Now take that idea and bring it back to the beginning. In the first fraction of a second after creation, the temperature of the universe was so extreme that matter as we know it could not exist. Particles collided with such ferocious violence that mass was completely irrelevant. Everything moved at or near the speed of light. Everything was primordial radiation. The early universe was, in the deepest physical sense, a universe without a working ruler, a universe that could not measure its own size. Look at both ends of cosmic history side by side. At the beginning of time, we have a universe that is tiny, packed with energy, devoid of functioning mass, where size and time are meaningless. At the end of time, we have a universe that is infinite, filled with light, devoid of mass, where size and time are again meaningless. These two states, separated by nearly 14 billion years of history, are mathematically identical. When you remove mass from the equation, infinity collapses to zero, and zero expands to infinity. The difference between the two is not physical, it is only a matter of how we describe them from the outside. We have been taught to treat the beginning of the universe as a brick wall, a hard starting point beyond which nothing existed and nothing can be known. Time simply began there, we are told, as though conjured by some undefined force. But geometry does not lie. I spent decades analyzing the deep structure of space-time itself, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that this supposed starting point is not a wall. It is a seam. It is the junction between two consecutive realities. The real question, the one physics now forces us to ask, is not how something came from nothing. The real question is what existed immediately before that transition. This framework has a name. I call each complete cycle an aeon. Our universe is not the first. It is one phase in an infinite chain of universes, each one born from the mathematical death of its predecessor. A cosmos expands, burns its stars, loses its matter, forgets its own dimensions, and in that geometric amnesia becomes the Big Bang of the next aeon. The cycle has no beginning and no end. It is a clock that winds itself using its own annihilation as fuel. And now I can finally answer the question that destroyed us in part 2. How did our universe begin with such impossible, almost supernatural order? The answer is that it did not generate that order from scratch. It inherited it. The infinite expansion and absolute cooling of the previous universe stretched space to perfect smoothness, swept away all accumulated disorder, and delivered a flawlessly clean and ordered slate, the blank canvas that became the initial fire of our own existence. The precision of our beginning was not a miracle. It was a legacy. But as a scientist, I do not ask you to accept elegant mathematics on faith alone. If there was an entire universe before ours, then physics demands that evidence must exist. There must be scars. Fossilized marks left by the violent conclusion of that previous cosmos, marks that survived the crossing into our own Big Bang and are still visible today, ghosts pressed into the oldest light in existence. And I know precisely where to look for them. The answer is not found through optical telescopes pointed at distant galaxies. It lives in the oldest radiation in the universe, the faint and ghostly microwave glow that bathes every corner of observable space. The cosmic microwave background. This radiation is the thermal echo of the Big Bang itself, the first light that escaped when our young universe finally cooled enough to become transparent. Conventional cosmology describes it as nearly perfectly uniform, a smooth, predictable curtain of ancient light. But a small group of colleagues and I decided not to accept that description without looking far more closely. We were not looking for beauty in that ancient light. We were hunting for wounds. We were searching for the specific scars that our theoretical framework demanded must be there. If our model of cyclical aeons was physically real and not merely a beautiful mathematical construction. Follow this reasoning with precision, because it is pure physics and it tolerates no logical shortcuts. In the universe that preceded ours, long before its absolute end, enormous gravitational monsters ruled the centers of massive galaxies. Supermassive black holes, each one containing the compressed mass of billions of suns, dominated the cosmic landscape with brutal authority. As that universe expanded infinitely and all ordinary matter gradually faded away, those black holes were left alone in the cold, dark, unimaginable void. And according to the quantum thermodynamic process Hawking identified, they did not last forever. Over periods of time, measured by ones, followed by 100 zeros, each of those black holes evaporated with agonizing slowness, converting their entire immense mass into pure energy and concentrating it into specific, well-defined regions of empty space. Now apply the law of geometric scale we established. When that dying universe lost its mass, lost its ruler, and collapsed mathematically into the beginning of our Big Bang, what happened to all that hyper-concentrated radiation left behind by those evaporating black holes? It did not vanish, it did not get erased. That ancient, intensely focused energy survived the transition. It crossed the boundary of infinite expansion, passed through the seam between aeons, and erupted violently into the fabric of our newborn universe. If this logic holds, that energy should have struck the young cosmos like a hammer strike, leaving not a random smear, but precise and measurable imprints, enormous concentric rings of anomalous temperature, specific points in the sky that are inexplicably hotter than any standard model of the early universe can account for. I call these anomalies Hawking points. And here is the hard, cold truth that much of the mainstream scientific community would prefer to quietly set aside, because acknowledging it would shake the foundations of decades of accepted cosmology. We search for those points. We rigorously analyzed real satellite data, high-resolution maps of the cosmic microwave background radiation, produced by some of the most precise instruments ever launched into space. And we found them. Not one, not a handful, dozens. Specific locations in the sky that are measurably, significantly hotter than any smooth Big Bang model can explain, without invoking a source of energy that predates our own universe. These are not a statistical noise. These are not measurement artifacts. These are empirical wounds in the sky. They are the dying screams of black holes from a previous cosmos, imprinted across the oldest light in existence, crossing the border of time to announce their own prior existence. The evidence has been there all along, staring back at us from the beginning of everything, waiting for someone willing to look without flinching. The universe is not a straight line. It is not a single arrow fired from a gun of nothingness toward a cold and meaningless death. It is a cycle, relentless, majestic, and governed by pure geometry. Each cosmos inherits order from its predecessor, burns magnificently for billions of years, expands into cold infinity, forgets its own dimensions, and through that profound geometric forgetting is reborn as the next creation. We are not the first. We will not be the last. But accepting this truth, accepting that we are the children of dead universes and the mathematical ancestors of universes not yet born, leads us to one final question, the most unsettling one of all. The one that reveals not just what the universe is, but what we are inside of it. I understand completely that absorbing this level of reality is a violent experience for human intuition. Everything I have shown you across these 5 chapters demands the complete dismantling of your most deeply rooted assumptions about time, space, and existence. Your brain, brilliantly engineered over millions of years for survival on the African savanna, measuring short distances, tracking brief spans of time, recognizing immediate threats, that brain resists these conclusions with every instinct it possesses. But the mathematics of reality does not negotiate with instinct. It simply describes what is true. Think of it this way. Imagine being handed a map with every detail, intact roads, rivers, cities, terrain, but with the scale bar removed from the bottom. Without that ruler, you have no way of knowing whether you are looking at a small town or an entire continent. The image itself is meaningless in terms of absolute size. Theoretical physics calls this property conformal invariance, and it is one of the most beautiful and simultaneously most terrifying properties embedded in the laws of nature. Today, mass serves as the scale bar of our universe. Particles with mass, the electrons forming your body, the atoms in every star act as microscopic clocks. Their mass determines how they interact with time and space. They are the ruler printed at the bottom of reality's map. But as we have established with unbreakable logic, in the absolute end of all things, every particle of matter will be gone. The black holes will have evaporated. Only pure radiation will remain light traveling through infinite emptiness, governed by laws that carry no concept of scale whatsoever. When the last atom vanishes from this universe, the cosmic ruler will be destroyed permanently. The universe will forget, in a deep and irreversible physical sense, how large it is. Its equations will collapse inward and become precisely equivalent to those of a microscopic point of hot, dense, primordial energy. The infinite will mathematically become zero, not as a metaphor, but as a geometric fact, because nothing inside it remains to perceive the difference. Our Big Bang was not the beginning of everything. It was the conclusion of something else. Our existence is a physical ghost born from the infinite corpse of a prior cosmos. We are one aeon in an endless chain, inheritors of a previous universe's legacy, and unwitting architects of the next one's birth. When you look at the night sky tonight, I forbid you from seeing distant romantic lights drifting through a mysterious void. What you are looking at is exposed machinery. You are watching the gears of an eternally cycling clock, one that uses its own complete and total destruction as the precise fuel required for its inevitable and mathematically certain rebirth. We do not live in a miraculous world conjured from a sterile emptiness. We live and breathe within the ordered fire that survived the catastrophic death of an immemorial cosmos. We are temporary matter in transit, children of infinity, and simultaneously the mathematical parents of the next Big Bang. The real physics is unsparing. It is brutal, and yet it carries a structural elegance that stops the human heart completely. The universe owes you no comfort and no easy answers. But if you possess the intellectual courage to follow the mathematics to its darkest and most final consequences, it will deliver you the absolute truth.